Hi, this is Carl the Cobra Froch, and you're watching Lights Out.
This is Faisal for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law. And with me via Zoom, delighted, honoured, and privileged to be joined by Spencer Fearon. Spencer, good afternoon. Juma Mubarak, how you doing?
Yeah, Juma Mubarak, bro. Yeah, I'm good, you know. I'm good. You've got to speed this up because I'm going to the mosque in a minute, man. So, yeah, it's even better for speaking to you, bro. Even better for speaking to you.
Well, thank you for taking your time out speaking to us today. I know, obviously, it's a busy schedule on a Friday for all the Muslims all over the world with Jummah. But let's just jump straight into it. You mentioned what I was going to ask you first about the Terence Crawford press conference yesterday. So I just want to get your reaction to what went down and what you made of Terence Crawford saying how we should keep the peace and this doesn't need to be that type of an event and this should be a respectable event. What was your thoughts on what went down?
I mean, maximum respect to Terence Crawford for coming out there, because he made a massive statement as far as I was concerned, saying that and he was speaking to the black community and the black culture, saying like every time like we come out, why do we have to be a certain way? And I've got props in for that. I thought that was, you know, he was just addressing like someone who's been abusive from Errol Spence's crowd, which I understand as well. I understand that because it's a big fight and things are heightened, and you know, and we want to talk out certain things. But yeah, respect to him for that. You know, I thought that was good. Bomac was hyped. You know, Derek James is hyped because this is how much it means to these men and for their fighters to perform. It's a massive fight, and so obviously emotions are going to be heightened. But I do respect the fact how the two fighters, the two combatants, how they behaved themselves and what they projected. I thought that was very, very nice and very sportsmanship.
Both fighters have had a great career so far, and you know, regardless of whoever wins on Saturday night, I'm pretty sure both fighters going on into the future will achieve a hell of a lot more in the sport. I mean, is this a fight that really needs to be sold in that type of manner where there's a lot of back and forth, you know, there's a lot of argy-bargy coming from both sides teams? Or do you think that this is a fight where simply let's just, you know, keep it respectable and the fight will, given the fact and magnitude of it?
I think to the boxing fan, this fight has caught up. You know what I mean? It's caught smoke, it's caught to the boxing fans. Has it really gone? Has it crossed over? No, but I think this is one of those fights that after people will catch on. It'd be one of those kind of ones. It'd be one of those kind of ones where everybody will reverting back to YouTube or say, "Do you remember this fight?" Because I think it's going to be that kind of fight. What are two? They're earning fantastically well, so they're potentially earning what 25 mil each or whatever. I think they will both bring out the best of each other. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Errol Spence's inactivity has been well known. Obviously, we know he's had a few problems outside of the ring with, you know, the car crash and the injury to the eye. Do you think the fact that he's not been as active as he should have been could play a bit of an advantage in towards Terence Crawford's corner on Saturday night?
No, because Terence Crawford hasn't been that active himself. The person that's fought more recent, so it's I don't think that's got anything to do with it. When you're at that level of being that kind of athlete, to get yourself in shape, to cut that weight, to be prepared to do all of those kind of things, I don't think it's the activity or the inactivity that is going to be the telling factor in this fight for either of them. I think what's going to happen is it's going to be more to the fact of what each man has inside of them and their desire to win, coupled with their skill and how they can demonstrate their skill. I think that's going to be the major thing. I don't think it's got anything to do with activity or inactivity, because in this day and age now, fighters fight when you reach a certain level. They fight like once a year, twice a year if you're lucky. They don't fight. It's not regular. So I would say I don't think that's going to be a telling factor at all, bro.
before we move on, and just like I've asked 15, 20, 25 people this week, give me a prediction on how the fight pans out. Who wins and who leaves Vegas as the king of the welterweight division, Spencer?
I would slightly favour Terence Crawford in this fight because I think Terence Crawford can do more than Errol Spence. But there's something about the size of Errol Spence and the fact that Errol Spence has very, very good boxing skills that don't get highlighted. He has very good. You don't believe he's got very good boxing brain as well. He's got a very good IQ. And if we look at the things that Errol Spence does, I will keep on saying about who can absorb information, then compute it, then put it into action. And the person that does that quicker, who downloads information quicker, it's Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford downloads information very quickly, and then he administers what he's downloaded in the same round, right? So these are the things why I would say, like, I could kindly favor Terence Crawford, but you never know because it's a great fight. And not only that, Errol Spence is about that. He's crud. He's about that. So as much as we're looking and saying, oh, I would favor, most people would favor Terence Crawford. I've seen Terence Crawford hurt. And one thing I do know is that Errol Spence is very big and very strong. So it is an actual pick and fight, and it's who you like better. So I'm not too rightly sure. But originally when this fight was first muted years and years and years ago, I was obviously saying that's my kids in the background here, right? I was obviously favoring, I was obviously favoring Terence Crawford. So I think maybe, but I'll be happy to be proven wrong by Errol Spence.
Okay, well, it's going to be an amazing fight. It's a fight fans have wanted to see for many years. Can't wait, and definitely, hopefully, it's one of those fights where we can look back on and say, yeah, that was one of the fights potentially of the decade. And who knows, maybe there could be a rematch. There could be a third fight. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, there is a rematch clause in process. Whether it gets administered, we don't know. But it is going to be a good fight, man. It's going to be an excellent fight. I think both men have great IQs. Both men can fight. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, and like I said, whoever wins tomorrow night could possibly become the face of boxing, right? Whoever wins tomorrow night, especially if the fight lives up to the anticipation that we're sitting down and waiting with bated breath to think what kind of fight it's going to be.
As I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great fight, and who knows, maybe even potentially a second fight, even a third fight. But I'm just glad we're getting the fight. It's a fight I never thought we'd get to see. Bring on fight night. Spence, just moving on. Now Inoue, an unbelievable performance at the start of this week with his victory over Stephen Fulton. There's a lot of talk about a potential fight between him and Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, you're a former professional boxer. You know how it is, moving up in weight. Kind of guy who's been at bantamweight, super bantamweight for the majority of his career. Does he have what it takes to go up all the way to a super featherweight or a lightweight weight? Do you think it's possible that he can do it?
I think if that fight was made, it would have to be made at super feather. I can't see that fight being made at lightweight. I don't think Inoue could bulk himself up that much. But the way Inoue hits, and Inoue, a 4-weight world champion right now, Inoue's the guy. Do you know what I mean? Right, Inoue is the guy. Inoue's, he's something spectacular.
You've obviously, we've all been blessed to have seen great fighters, especially throughout the last few years. But is it fair to say right now that Inoue is the best fighter in the world?
We can't argue and say that he's not. He's a 4-weight world champion. And it's how he just blows out guys. But in saying that, I believe that the person who wins on Saturday between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence should be the pound for pound number one, simply because when you're beating somebody, you're also beating their resume. And if Errol Spence beats Terence Crawford, He's beating a resume of a man that's been an undisputed champion already. He's going to beat a resume of a man that's been a freeweight world champion, right? If Terence Crawford wins, Terence Crawford beats a man that has got great names on his record. He's got Garcia, he's got Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia on his record. You know, he's got Kell Brook on his record. He's got UKAD, right? So he's got really good names on his record as well. So I think whoever wins that fight should be the pound for pound number one. But if someone said, nah, they've got Ngannou as their number one, I couldn't argue with that because Ngannou is bloody fantastic, man.
With me on a daily basis, there's two things I like to talk about mostly, and that's football and boxing. They're my two favorite sports. And I mean, in the UK, I think a lot of people, boxing fans struggle to deal with who the likes of Spence is, the Anoues are. These are some of the best fighters in the world right now. At some point, would you like to see the likes of the Spencers and the Anoues come over to the UK? And do you think that could maybe potentially, boost their knowledge to the public as well? Do you think at some point the Anoues
because where they really got to conquer is where they're from. So they need to conquer America. Even though people are talking about it, they're not talking about it. They're talking about it, but they're not really talking about it. You can see that by yesterday in the press conference. I thought we was going to be overawed with a massive crowd. There wasn't really a big crowd at that press conference yesterday. So what I'm trying to say is capture the boxing imagination hasn't captured outside of boxing imagination. But I don't think when we're talking about England's a tiny Great Britain is a tiny place. People feel like this is a big, massive. It's not. It's tiny. But what it is like, in our country, we are more appreciative of boxing because our fans, we appreciate boxing. If you go speak to many of the guys, I remember Leonard Ellaby when he came over, he said like Great Britain's got the best fans in the world. So it's different. Our fans are more in depth with the fighter than how it is in America. I think America's your sport is a far greater place. 51 states, and you've got so many different activities to put your energy into. So it's different. It's totally different.
Okay, moving on. We know that the Joshua White 2 fight is literally a few weeks away. And obviously throughout the last week or so, there's been a lot said between Anthony Joshua, Carl Froch. There's been comments made towards Joshua's former trainer, Robert Mcracken. Now, Anthony Joshua was very successful with Robert Mcracken. Carl Froch has had a bit to say as well. And what do you make of the needle between Joshua and Carl Froch? And do you think that maybe Joshua needs to look at what he achieved with Robert Mcracken and pay a bit more respect to Robert Mcracken as well?
Well, I don't think Anthony Joshua being disrespectful to Robert Mcracken. Number one, I think, and I'm not buying no one's argument neither. I know Robert Mcracken very well. I regard Robert Mcracken as a friend, so I'm not going to say anything disrespectful about Robert Mcracken. But what I am saying is this is the business, right? Bottom line is this: did Robert Mcracken earn fantastically well working with Anthony Joshua, right? And guiding him in the way that he did, maneuvering him in the way that it was with Eddie Hearn? Did he not earn is Robert Mcracken not a millionaire right now because of Anthony Joshua? Then if it isn't because of Anthony Joshua, then tell me I'm wrong. Because I know that he's a millionaire off of the back of Anthony Joshua, right? So I get it where they're looking at like, oh, well, this loyalty is meant to be for perpetuity. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. So yes, Robert Mcracken is done fantastically well. And also Robert Mcracken has done fantastic for the GB squad. Amateur boxing was nothing until that man took over the program. I can tell you that now for nothing, because I remember when they were doing the advertisements for the GB coach back in 2000. Yeah, I think it was back in 2000. I remember the advert in the Boxing News about that, right? So Robert Mcracken has done amazing, right? Not knocking you for that. But when Anthony Joshua's saying the things that he's saying, it could be a lot to do with like, he must have thought like our relationship was more than just the boxing. And you as a fighter could feel aggrieved when you realize that it's not just about, it is only just about the boxing, right? People need to realize this part here, that boxing, you are chewing gum. And I've said this many times. You're chewing gum. And when the taste is gone, then you're gone. So maybe in reverse now, Anthony Joshua looked at the thing of Robert Mcracken. You're chewing gum and the taste is gone, so you're gone. But how it went was this. Anthony Joshua opted to bring in Angel Fernandez into his camp. When he brought Angel Fernandez into his camp, I remember having a conversation with Tundi. I said, it's done for Mcracken. Because as soon as you start bringing other guys in, oh, well, maybe I need this guy and I need that guy and da-da-da-da, you're, in a way, you're undermining my work that I've done with you. Right? That's what you've done. He said, no, I just want to, we're just doing pads or blah, blah, blah. He's coming in doing pads. Everybody's got an ego and everybody's ambitious. So if you're sitting down and you're playing number two, but you're looking at you're playing number two, but deep down inside, just saying, my number two is actually number one. My number two is actually number two, and I want to be number one. Then you are going to get these little whispers in ears. Because I know how this game goes. You are going to, oh, maybe you don't need this, or maybe all the rest of it. Right? So when that does happen, then people become snaky. And this is just the sport. So I'm not saying anything ill about Robert Mcracken. I'm not saying anything ill about Anthony Joshua. But this is life. And in life, right, if you cannot change people, then you change people. And that's what happened, right? But end of the day, they both kind of needed each other, right? But if that was the case of Robert Mcracken just doing it out of the love, you know what I mean? Because that's what amateur means, for the love of, right? And not looking at it in a professional viewpoint, he would have let Anthony Joshua go off after he won the Olympic gold medal. But no, you were still there. And everybody knows that you were training Anthony Joshua when Anthony Joshua turned professional. Everybody knows it. You know what I mean? You were still the major guy. You had the Sims, them guys there, and they were trying to take credit. But everyone knows that you weren't training Anthony Joshua. All the training was done with Robert. Robert Mcracken was the guy that did everything. So Robert Mcracken gave his life to Anthony Joshua for that time being. And like, well, Carl Froch being involved, maybe Carl Froch is looking at it like there could be, and I don't want to say like envy, because I know Carl Froch really well, and Carl Froch we're cool, but maybe it's more of a fact like, oh, look, you see, you put all your eggs in your basket with Anthony Joshua, but I was the one that stayed loyal to you. I was the one that was always with you. I was the one. But the thing about it is this, when Carl Froch was training with Robert Mcracken, nobody ever turned to Carl Froch and said to Carl Froch, you should leave Robert Mcracken. From when Anthony was with Robert Mcracken, loads of people were saying, leave Robert Mcracken. I reckon I was the only one that came on record and said he should never leave him because of the combination of what they produced together, right? But when everyone was turning around saying to leave him, remember Lennox Lewis saying like, you can't bring your, you can't go to university with your primary teacher or something like that, somewhere along the lines of that, right? And Lennox Lewis was not wrong. He was right in what he was saying, but you know what I mean, on certain things, loyalty's royalty. So it's nobody's at fault here. So what should be is a factor like nobody's at fault here. I understand that relationships do grow apart, but there's something deeper when it comes to Carl Froch. And why it's deeper, and it's not me taking digs at Carl Froch, because me and Carl are cool, right? But I'm just keeping this thing 100. Maybe it's something a little bit deeper on the fact of Carl Froch, because Carl Froch was a star boy, he was a number one boy. He's retired, he ain't number one boy now. And Anthony Joshua has done fantastically well as a fighter, as being a multi-titled world champion as well, because he picked up different organization belts and all the rest of it, and the money that he's generated, and also the acclaim that he's got from the British public. These are things that Carl Froch has never had. I just want to be real with you. Carl Froch has never ever had that acclaim that Anthony Joshua's had. Never. So maybe it could be a little bit of like, I don't like you for that. If you just stayed loyal to Rob, I'd have liked you, but you haven't stayed loyal to Rob. So therefore, to hell with you. Either way, those guys are sitting pretty. You know what I mean? They're all right. Their bread's buttered on 6 sides. They're all right, man.
I mean, Anthony Joshua is now at a stage in his career where potentially one more defeat could be the end of the road for him. I mean, when we look back at his time with Robert Mcracken, you know, an Olympic gold medal, 2 world title wins, and obviously some of his best performances were under Robert Mcracken. But Anthony Joshua is now at an age where he's not getting any younger. He's lost.
No, stop. All of his best performances have been Robert McCracken. Let's just keep this thing 100.
Okay.
All of them, Robert McCracken.
All of his best performances have been under.
Right. He's had 2 fights away from Robert. And in those 2 fights, he lost to Usyk, and it was a very lackluster performance against Franklin. Let's just keep this thing real, right? So he knows now he's got so much more to go out and press on to go and do. That's what he's got to go and do, right? Let's just keep this thing real.
With him being, not getting any younger, and obviously the last 3 performances haven't been as well as he'd hoped to have been. What does Derek James do differently with him? As I mentioned, he's not getting any younger. The fights are not going to be, top 10 fighters now. They're going to be all world elite fighters. Hopefully, if he wins against Dillian Whyte, we'll get the fight with Deontay Wilder. If he can beat Wilder, it puts him back in contention to get a world title shot. What do you do differently with this man now? I mean, do you revert him to his old ways?
I believe that Derek James will enable Anthony Joshua to connect with his cultural identity. And I've said it, I'm not taking it back. How about that one? That's what I believe that Derek James will enable Anthony Joshua to go and do. You know what I mean? And also to help him more rhythmically. That's what I believe. Right? For him to connect with his cultural identity, for him to feel that rhythmic motion and movement, right? That's what I believe that Derek James brings to the table, and it's for Anthony Joshua to go out there and administer that. That's what I believe.
Okay, one final one, Spencer, before I let you go, because obviously I know Jim was in short.
That's cool.
Okay, all right, not a problem. Tyson Fury, next fight is against Francis Ngannou. I spoke to Eddie Hearn yesterday, and he said that Tyson Fury hasn't cemented the legacy that Tyson Fury is capable of cementing, i.e. he's not fought the Usyks, he's not fought Joshua, he's not become an undisputed champion. What do you make of those comments, and what do you also make of his next fight being against Francis Ngannou, a former UFC world champion, but a guy that's never boxed before?
Eddie Hearn is absolutely right. Let's just be truthful, right? That is the truth.
But before you go on, let's remember, I mean, he is a 2-time world champion.
Oh, but regardless of that, he's a 2-time world champion. Right. I give potentially, we know, if we're going off of potentiality, Tyson Fury, technically the best heavyweight in the world, right? Tyson Fury can do things that no one his size is meant to do. He can do it. So therefore, why would you want to go and prove it and fight this guy and fight Usyk, right? Because think it, the Usyk fight, you're going in as favorite. The Joshua fight, you're going in as favorite. Why don't you go fight those guys? You didn't go in a favorite in the first fight with Deontay Wilder. But then apart from that, every time when you faced him again, you were the favorite going into that fight, right? So I would like to see Tyson Fury in with Usyk or Joshua. And Eddie Hearn's right. It's not cemented because you can't say that you beat the other guys around in your era. And it's just like when they say, well, I saw John Fury, who I like a lot, saying that, oh, well, Muhammad Ali fought Inoko in an exhibition, right? He was a wrestler. I think that was in 76, right? But the thing about it is this, Ali could do that. Reason why? Because Ali's beating George Foreman. Ali's beating Frazier. Ali's beating Ken Norton. Ali's beating George Foreman. That's what already. Ali's beating all those guys. He's beating Ron Lau. So Ali's allowed to go and do that. Tyson Fury, you can't turn around and say you're beating the guys around in your era. So therefore, well, I could just go and scum then go and fight this UFC guy. You know what I mean? And I'm not knocking that fight there because I'm being real. I'm down for people earn as much as they can. And Francis Ngannou was abused in the UFC by Dana White, not earning the money that he should be earning. It was like 600 grand, he was getting a fight. He's getting like 8 million for this fight here, right? So when I see that, that's a success story to me. I have to clap the bro. You know what I mean? But can he really go up against Tyson Fury, who's boxed all of his life, who most probably came out with his mother's room with boxing gloves on? No, he can't. He can't. Tyson Fury's going to play with him. Like I said, the only interesting thing is this: if Ngannou just knocks out Tyson Fury, sticks on him and knocks him out, which I can't see that happening, to tell you the honest truth. I can see Tyson Fury just boxing and playing with him. You know what I mean? Because it's two different things. You could be the king at tennis, and I'm the king at table tennis, and you try to battle me, I'm going to destroy you in my field.
I'm actually quite a good tennis player, but I've never played table tennis before, Spencer, so you probably would whip my ass.
I'm very good at table tennis. I'll destroy you at table. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
All right, okay, right. Definitely one final one now. Conor Benn. It's listen, won't go too deep into what's happened over the last year, but is the future of Conor Benn is still up in the air right now. You've been obviously you're a former professional fighter. You've never been in this situation, but is it getting to a point now where Conor Benn could start looking at this situation and thinking, well, there is no potential light at the end of the tunnel. There is no sort of final say on what's going to happen next. How much patience do you think that man has left in him right now? And I mean, could this potentially be pushing Conor Benn away from the sport of boxing?
No, because Conor Benn wants to fight. It's in him. It's in his DNA to fight. I just hope that he can prove his innocence, right? And then just move on with his career. I actually like Conor. I ain't gonna guess, but somebody's done something along the way that's made something sharp. And then if you're innocent, prove your innocence. I'm tired of talking about it, to tell you the honest truth. But I don't think this will push him away from the sport. I think Conor's a person that just loves the game, loves being inside it, and he also loves to fight. So if they don't come to some conclusion very, very soon, either let him fight or ban him. But either way, let's just come to a conclusion.
Hey, right, Spencer. Before I let you go, just want to thank you very much for your time as always.
You as well, man. Blessings to be on Lights Out. You know what I mean? Blessings to be on Lights Out. And just keep on doing what you're doing, Mr. Khan. Yeah? All right. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Walaikum salam, Spencer Fearon. Pleasure as always. Jim Mubarak. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the fight. And thank you for talking to Lights Out.